A lot of people wear the Stoic label, not because they want to grow, but because they're running from the truth. They're weak, and they can't stand that. They come to philosophy for the image, the style, the mask that hides personal helplessness. They think reading a few lines from Marcus Aurelius, using the hashtag Stoic, quoting Seneca here and there is all it takes to become strong. But Stoicism isn't for the weak. Not because it's cruel, but because it doesn't compromise. It doesn't pamper your feelings, doesn't coddle your wounds, doesn't let you use pain as an excuse for powerlessness. Stoicism wasn't created to make you feel comfortable. It was made to force you to become unbreakable. And if you don't have the guts to take responsibility for yourself, then you've never lived by this philosophy. You've just exploited it. And that's just the beginning. If you've got the guts, keep watching. Because in the next part, I'll break down every reason why you think you're strong, but you're still living like someone weak. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and like if you're new here. It helps me keep bringing you more valuable content. They sit there on podcasts in philosophy groups, under dim lights in some hipster cafe, mouthing Marcus Aurelius quotes like they've tapped into a depth of soul that regular people couldn't possibly understand. Amor fati. Memento mori. The obstacle is the way. They speak as if they live those words, but the truth is, they're just talking. Stoicism isn't a word game. It's not something you slap on your Instagram bio or perform with calm detachment in front of your ex. It's a way of life, and that means you have to do, not just learn, not just read, not just say. You can read shelves of classical philosophy, memorize every line of Marcus's meditations, highlight every sentence in orange. But if you lose control the moment someone insults you, if you collapse after a failure and start blaming the world, if you can't endure one boring workday without whining, then you haven't practiced a damn thing. You're just an educated parrot. Stoicism doesn't care how much you know. It cares how much you live. And living means living by principles, in adversity, without excuses. People often mistake the feeling of understanding for growth. They think they've matured just because they've grasped a deep idea. But understanding is never enough. Understanding without action is just a waste of intellect. Stoic philosophy wasn't built to make you sound wise. It was built to keep you standing when the world falls apart, to help you stay rational while everything else burns. Have you ever actually applied Stoicism when someone you love betrays you? When your job falls apart? When you're humiliated in public? Have you ever chosen silence over ego, self-control over rage, responsibility over reaction? Or are you just like everyone else, except with better quotes? The difference between reading and living lies in the moment you endure pain without surrender. When you know you're about to get fired, and instead of whining, you quietly learn a new skill. Wake up earlier, endure the humiliation. When someone disrespects you, and instead of proving a point, you smile and move forward. When life kicks you to the floor, and you don't beg for rescue, you just stand up. That's practice. That's Stoicism. And you? You sit there with letters from a Stoic in hand, nodding along before switching to Netflix. You tell yourself, I'm on the path. No, you're not. You're stalling. You're playing a fake game. No scars, no struggle, nothing real. Reading isn't bad. Reading is good. But if you read without acting, you're poisoning yourself with the illusion of progress. And that's why you're still weak, still stuck, still not growing. Stoicism isn't a sanctuary for the fragile. It's a battlefield for those willing to stand in the storm without flinching. If you can't stand silence, if you can't resist posting an angry status, if you can't handle someone misunderstanding you without needing to defend your image, then you haven't even begun to live this philosophy. So if you call yourself a Stoic, look hard at how you live today. Did you act like an inner warrior? Or just another bookworm trapped in self-delusion? If you haven't done the first, then shut your mouth. Don't claim it. Don't say another word. Act first, then speak. Here's a truth no one wants to hear. Most people who claim they're into Stoicism are just emotional addicts wearing a philosophical cloak. They don't love the silence of Marcus Aurelius. They love the calm and deep vibe that quoting Marcus Aurelius gives them. They don't love the discipline, the repetition, the monotony. They love the temporary high of realizing something profound. They don't want to live like Seneca. They just want to feel like Seneca. This is the chronic disease of the cheap dopamine era. People are addicted to feeling, not to discipline. They hunt for 30-second motivational clips and think they're ready to change their life. They read 2 pages of philosophy and then post a Facebook status as long as a sermon, thinking they're a sage. But the next morning, they're still lazy, still procrastinating, still compromising with the weakness inside. Stoicism wasn't designed to give you a rush. It's not inspiring. It doesn't excite you. It doesn't give you dopamine. It makes you tired. It makes you feel alone. It makes you bored. It makes life feel like an endless loop of responsibility that you must carry, regardless of how you feel. And that is what forges who you are. But you don't want that. You want hype, not discipline. You want fire, not the cold bite of consistency. You want to feel like a warrior, but live like a victim. You think discipline is prolonged motivation. It's not. It's action without motivation. Doing it even when you don't feel like it. Continuing even when there's no result. Staying quiet even when you want to scream. Staying consistent even when no one sees you, no one praises you, no one understands. That's where real strength is found. And you're afraid of it. You're afraid of living without an audience. Afraid of doing something no one will see. Afraid of repetition without instant reward. Afraid of action that doesn't feel like anything. So you reject discipline. You choose feeling. You choose what makes you feel good, even if it never makes you better. That's why you're losing. Stoicism isn't some podcast that makes you feel lighter. It's the scream inside your head every morning when you want to hit snooze, but still get up. It's the loneliness in the gym when you train alone for 6 months and no one notices. It's taking ownership for your mistakes without needing to explain. It's walking into fear anyway. No applause, no video, no encouragement. Just you and your duty. You think you're strong because you feel inspired? Wrong. Inspiration is the easy part. The hard part is keeping the action going after the inspiration dies. And it dies fast. It dies often. If you don't learn to act without needing to feel, you'll never live out any philosophy, let alone Stoicism. You may think you're living the philosophy, but look at your training record, your sleep habits, your response to criticism, your behavior when things don't go your way. Those are the clearest mirrors. Do you love Stoicism, or do you love the feeling of being deep? Do you love discipline, or do you love the image of looking disciplined in other people's eyes? If your answer is the second, then you're living in illusion. And you'll always be weak. Not because you're not smart enough, but because you don't have the guts to endure discipline. That dry, cold, merciless thing, which just so happens to be the only thing that can turn you into a real man. No one needs you to feel. They need you to stand up and do what's right, even when you don't feel a damn thing. If this video made you think, hit like now. Comment below, how have you applied Stoicism in your life? Stoic success, unbreakable mindset, total control. Most people don't turn to Stoicism because they want to get stronger. They come because they're afraid, because they're weak, because they're looking for a shelter from a life they can't handle. That's why so many wear the Stoic label just to run. Run from their emotional chaos. Run from responsibility. Run from the truth that they're failing, that they lack discipline, that their life is out of control. They don't want philosophy. They want an excuse to feel less shitty. To them, Stoicism becomes a spiritual painkiller. They repeat lines like, accept what you can't control, not because they get it, but because they're looking for permission to quit, to surrender. When they get rejected, they say, it's fate. When they fail, they say, I'm learning to accept. No, you're not learning anything. You're rationalizing your weakness. You're hiding behind philosophy so no one sees the raw helplessness inside. Stoicism is not a place to hide. It's a place to stand the hell up. This philosophy wasn't built to numb your pain, but to help you endure it without falling apart. It doesn't teach you to meditate your way out of reality. It teaches you to face it without losing yourself. You don't need another safe space. You need a trench to hold the line. And Stoicism is that trench, cold, lonely, brutal, but the only place you can stand tall in the storm without begging for pity. And that terrifies you. You're scared to stand alone, scared no one will relate, scared to own every damn decision you've made. You don't want to admit that everything you're going through is a result of your own choices. You don't want to hear that. So you pick a softer, gentler version of Stoicism, where you're allowed to retreat, allowed to heal, allowed to be weak, and still call it growth. But that's a lie. Stoicism has no room for self-indulgence. You won't find comfort here. You'll find limits, hunger, exhaustion, and then you'll keep going. You know why Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal and never showed it to anyone? Because he didn't need agreement. He didn't need to be understood. He didn't need praise. He wrote to stop himself from sliding, from forgetting inner discipline in a world drunk on pleasure and power. You read his words and think, this is deep, while he wrote them under the crushing weight of an empire. You're nothing like him. You're using him as a spiritual shield to justify your own retreat. You're not a warrior if you're hiding. No one gets stronger by curling up in theory. Want to grow? Step out of your cave. Stand up. No excuses, no permission needed. Stoicism is where you take the hit, not where you hide from it. If you're using it to dull the sting of your fragile mind, stop. Don't pollute this philosophy with your cowardice. It wasn't made to make you feel better. It was made to make you worthy. It sounds ironic, but a lot of people come to Stoicism thinking it'll help them hurt less. They think if they learn how to accept, if they understand serenity in adversity, then life will somehow feel lighter, less brutal. They assume that understanding philosophy means feeling less pain. They're wrong. Stoicism wasn't built to make you comfortable. It was built so you could endure hell without breaking. The problem is, most people today have zero tolerance. They're weak from the inside. A single disapproving look ruins their whole day. One harsh word and they spiral into self-doubt. They think pain means failure. They don't get it. Pain is the test to see if you're worthy of strength. You want to be strong like the ancient Stoics? Then you've got to bleed like they did. There is no other path. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his journal in an air-conditioned room with ambient music and the scent of essential oils in the background. He wrote while fighting off plagues, rebellions, and death breathing down his neck. He lost his wife, lost children, was betrayed, and was attacked from within by constant illness. And still, he wrote, still ruled an empire. No self-pity, no tears begging for sympathy, just a cold, lucid mind standing tall in the chaos. And you get dumped and post 8 sob stories on social media. You lose a temp job and think life's unfair. Your muscles ache a bit from the gym and you quit. You fail 3 times and you're ready to give up. You're not weak because you don't know. You're weak because you refuse to endure. Stoicism wasn't created to help you dodge pain. It was built to teach you how to hold your stance while bleeding. You still go to work after betrayal. Still live by principle when insulted. Still move forward in silence when your insides are screaming. And you do it not because you feel good, but because it's the right thing to do. You think pain means you're on the wrong path? No. In this world, if you're chasing something worthwhile, pain is the entry fee. Pain is the test. Pain doesn't mean you're lost. Sometimes it's proof you're finally on the right track. Sure, you can dodge it, you can take the easy way out. You can become that guy who heals himself through 17 online courses and never sets foot in the real world. But one day, life's gonna slap you across the face, and if you've never learned how to stay standing through pain, you'll snap. Instantly. And no philosophy will save you then, because philosophy wasn't built to take the hit for you. It's just the blade. You've got to use your own damn hands to cut away the softness, the self-pity, the lies you tell yourself. You've got to learn to breathe through the pain. No whining, no panic, no playing victim. You don't need to feel okay, you just need to keep going. What makes you strong isn't positive thinking, it's the ability to suffer in silence. To know today will hurt tomorrow too, and still do the work. No retreat, no begging. When you accept that, not with words but with relentless action, only then do you earn the right to call yourself a Stoic. People often say losing money, losing a job, or losing a lover is the greatest fear in modern life. Not wrong, but there's a quieter, more cowardly fear no one talks about, the fear of losing your self-image in the eyes of others. And that's exactly what turns most modern Stoics into a joke. You're not afraid of sleepless nights. You're afraid of being seen as unproductive. You're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of people seeing you fail. You're not truly suffering from loss. You're suffering because you think others are judging you for it. Stoicism doesn't teach you to protect your image. It teaches you to drop it. Kill the illusion. Kill the ego. Burn every role you're clinging to just to feel respected, acknowledged, or appear strong. A true Stoic doesn't try to be stoic. They don't need to quote Epictetus. They don't need a stone-cold face. They don't have to fake composure. Because they're not performing, they simply are. The weakest person in the room is the one who always has to prove they're okay. The one who's obsessed with keeping it together, making sure no one sees them struggle. No one thinks they're lost. But it's that exact need to save face that keeps them trapped, fake, and hollow. I've seen guys talk endlessly about letting go of expectations, but freak out when they lose a few followers or no one likes their posts. I've seen people post captions dripping with inner peace, yet clench their jaw taking 20 photos just to find one that looks natural. You think that's stoicism? That's fear. They live off of others' eyes, and nothing contradicts Stoic philosophy more than that. What does Stoicism teach you? That you can lose everything, money, status, people, and still have one thing no one can ever take, your inner dignity. But it's not recognized dignity. It's dignity that needs no recognition. Remember, Marcus was an emperor, absolute power, but he wrote only for himself, not for anyone to read. Epictetus was a slave. No one respected him, but he lived freer than anyone else. They shared one thing. They didn't live for acceptance. And you? You call yourself awake, but fear losing likes more than losing principles. You say, I don't need to be understood, but secretly check who watched your story. You wear philosophy as a label to protect your image, not to live in truth. You know what really hurts? Realizing that the very image of strength you've worked so hard to build is exactly what's holding you back. You don't dare fail in public because you're afraid they'll see. You don't dare start over because you fear being judged. You don't dare say I was wrong because you fear losing credibility. You're not living, you're performing. Stoicism doesn't care about admiration. It cares about integrity. You could be laughed at by the whole world, but if you don't sell out your principles, you're still strong. On the other hand, you might be praised as calm, wise, rational. But if you're still afraid of what people think of you, then you're being controlled. And a person controlled by the crowd's gaze is not free. And without freedom, you're living in direct opposition to everything Stoicism stands for. So the question isn't, how much do you know, what quotes can you drop, or how do you look? The question is, can you let people misunderstand you, disrespect you, disagree with you, and still live true? If not, then you're not strong. You're just cosplaying strength. Stop wasting another day living in weakness and chaos. Subscribe to Stoic Success now to build an unbreakable mindset, master your emotions, and face life like a warrior. You're not a Stoic if you still react like a child when someone pisses you off. You're not living the philosophy if other people's emotions can push your buttons anytime they want. The truth is, most so-called woke people today are nothing more than walking emotional bombs with triggers right under their skin. One comment they don't like, one disrespectful attitude, one passive-aggressive post, and boom, rage, stress, instant reaction, like some primal reflex hijacking their entire system. Stoicism doesn't say you can't have emotions. It doesn't ask you to become a robot. It teaches you something far harder, to control your emotions so you act with reason, not animal reflex. And that's what most people can't do, because instinct feels good. It's fast, it's easy, and most of all, it makes you feel like you're being authentic. The problem is, authentic doesn't mean doing whatever you feel like. That's just a cheap excuse for lack of control. You think you're expressing your true feelings, but the truth is, you're a prisoner of those feelings. You know what really shows you're weak? Not when you cry, not when you get angry, But when anyone, at any time, can poke some part of you and make you lose control. When your emotions drive your behavior, you've handed over the steering wheel of your life to someone else. You're no longer free. You're a puppet on strings. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't control the world. They didn't control other people. But there's one thing they absolutely had to master: how they responded. Not, I feel angry so I lash out, but I feel anger and I choose to act with reason. You can't control what hits you, but you can control how you hit back. And in this chaotic world, that ability is your survival weapon. But you're still making excuses, still saying, I'm just an emotional person. That's not emotional depth, that's dependency. Emotions aren't the enemy, but if you don't master them, they'll drive you into actions you'll regret. And a man who constantly has to apologize for what he did in anger isn't a strong man. He's just someone who's failed to lead himself. Don't say you follow Stoicism if you still get moody when someone leaves you on red. Don't say you understand philosophy if you're still losing sleep over some stranger's comment online. Don't call yourself unshakable if your entire mood shifts because of someone's tone or a look they gave you. This world will always give you reasons to be pissed off. Always throw things that throw you off. Always drop words that rattle your brain. If you react to every bump, you'll be manipulated forever. The Stoic doesn't let emotion lead, he lets principle lead. And principle doesn't shift with feelings. It stays still, it stays cold, it stays impartial. But it's the only thing that lets you stay whole when the storm hits. You can keep doing what you always do. Snap, explode, clap back, or you can shut your mouth, breathe slow, analyze, and act like someone who's chosen the harder road. The road of reason, of discipline, of a man who's no longer a slave to himself. Stoicism wasn't made to help you feel better. It was made to teach you how to do what's right, even when you feel nothing at all. People love to talk about discipline like it's some noble trait, a badge of mature manhood. But watch them for a couple weeks and you'll see. They can't stick with it for more than 3 days. The reason's simple. Discipline isn't sexy. It's not flashy. It's not exciting. It's not like a philosophy book you can highlight, snap a pic of, and post online for admiration. Discipline is what you do every damn day, in silence, without applause. Stoicism isn't about how much you understand life. It's about whether you'll stick to your principles when no one's watching. Living it means waking up early even when it's freezing, training even when you're not motivated, writing the plan, then grinding through it step by step, without excuses. But today's crowd? They confuse discipline with inspiration. They think they should only act when they feel it, when the vibe's right, when their energy aligns. They don't get that waiting for emotion is what kills all discipline. Real discipline starts after inspiration dies. After day 5, when the novelty wears off. After week 2, when the results haven't shown up yet. After month 1, when nobody asks if you're still doing it. If you can't survive those phases, you're just like every other guy. Smart, quick to understand, great at talking, but can't execute worth a damn because you lack backbone. A Stoic doesn't need to feel good to do what's right. He just knows it's right and does it. Repeats it. No emotion, no cheerleaders, no validation. That's character. That's steel. That's reason outmuscling mood. That's why people trust him and respect him. And you say you live by reason, but you quit anything the moment it gets boring. You say you follow principle, but you break your rules every time something's more urgent, more fun, more convenient. You call it flexibility, but really, you're just weak, wrapped in philosophical camouflage. Because if you can't keep the promises you made to yourself, then who the hell are you? Stoicism doesn't care what you say. It cares what you do. Today, tomorrow, and the day after that. Doing it in silence. Doing it without applause. Doing it without instant results. Doing it because there is no other option if you want to become the man you respect. If you can't handle repetition, if you can't anchor yourself to right action day in and day out, then stop saying you live by philosophy. You're toying with an idea, and you'll never taste what the truly disciplined earn: inner freedom and unshakable strength. One of the clearest signs that someone isn't truly living Stoicism is that they still let the outside world shape their inner world. They let other people's eyes define their worth. They let fleeting trends, social media reactions, praise or criticism control their mind like a puppet. And then they claim, "I live rationally." That's the most ridiculous thing ever. Stoicism is a philosophy of inner strength. It begins and ends with you. No one can control you unless you allow it. No one can insult you unless you choose to feel insulted. No one can throw you off course unless you had no direction to begin with. But what about people today? They wake up and check their phone first thing. They post a status and immediately start tracking likes. They change opinions based on the crowd, speak just safely enough not to be criticized, live in ways that are socially acceptable. And they think they're independent? You can't practice Stoicism if you're still afraid of what the crowd thinks. If you need their agreement, you've already surrendered to their control. If you require validation, then you are not free. Real freedom is doing what's right, no matter who's watching. Holding your principles even when misunderstood, isolated, or mocked. That's when you start to find out whether you actually have inner strength or not. This modern world worships vulnerability, sensitivity, and empathy to the point where people have become fragile sheets of silk, ready to tear at the slightest touch. Touch their pain, touch their past, touch their trigger zone, and they react, get angry, assign blame. Don't think that's normal. That's dependence, an elegant, socially sanctioned form of personal weakness. A true Stoic doesn't live like that. They still listen, but they're not swayed. They still absorb, but they don't lose themselves. They can stand in the middle of noise and keep their inner silence. They can be attacked without needing to fight back. They can be labeled every which way and still live by the definition they choose. And you? Someone disagrees with you and you feel offended. Someone looks down on you and you rush to respond to reclaim your value. Someone criticizes you and you lose sleep. You're not independent. You're still being controlled. And the scary part is, you think that's normal. You don't need to please others. You don't need to be accepted. You just need to know you're doing what's right. And if you're not sure you are, then don't open your mouth about any philosophy. Sit down and face your deepest fear, the fear of social rejection. Because until you overcome that, you'll never be free. And until you're free, you'll never understand what Stoicism really is. One of the deadliest mistakes people make when they claim to follow Stoicism is using the word acceptance as a cop-out for doing nothing. They say they're learning to let go, to live in peace, to not force things. But in reality, they're just hiding. Not acting, not facing up, not taking responsibility. Stoicism doesn't tell you to let everything go and sit around waiting for life to show you mercy. It doesn't ask you to accept life like some helpless prayer looking up at the sky saying, "I give up." It tells you to clearly separate what's in your control, and once you've done that, to go all in. That's acceptance. That's strength. Accept what you can't change and break what you can with cold, disciplined, relentless action. But you fail an exam and say, "Maybe it wasn't meant for me." You get rejected and tell yourself everything happens for a reason. You fall short and hide behind. Let go of expectations for inner peace. That's not acceptance. That's surrender. And you're wrapping your surrender in pretty language to soothe your ego. Worse, you actually think it makes you wise. You can't use philosophy as a shield for your helplessness. If you still know what needs to be done, still have the capacity to do it, still have a shot to fight, and you don't, then you don't understand Stoicism. You're just a quitter, dressing up in faux enlightenment. That's not peace. That's pretending. A real Stoic acts decisively within the limits of what's possible and accepts completely whatever lies beyond those limits. They don't sit still and call it stillness. They do everything that must be done, on time, the right way. No whining, no complaining, and when life still doesn't go their way, they don't collapse. They don't lash out. They don't blame. They just shrug and keep moving. That's acceptance. No bitterness, no excuses, but also no retreat from action. No hiding behind spirituality or philosophy to justify your own passivity. You say you accept fate, but you haven't even pushed to your final limit. You haven't bled, haven't lost sleep, haven't squeezed every damn minute into trying to change the thing you're whining about. And yet you have the nerve to say it's destiny? That's a lie. And worse, it's a lie you're telling yourself. Philosophy isn't for cowards. It's for those with the guts to take ownership. If you don't know where the limit ends and the opportunity begins, then don't talk about acceptance yet. Ask yourself, have you really done enough? Have you really fought all out? Or did you just try 3 times, fail, and put on the costume of someone who gets it? You don't need to pretend to be deep. You just need to be honest enough to admit you gave up too soon. Stoicism isn't a lullaby, it's an alarm bell. And if you're really living by it, you'd never call surrender acceptance. One of the clearest signs that someone hasn't grasped Stoicism is that they constantly feel irritated, disappointed, or hurt because others don't behave the way they want. They feel let down because their parents don't understand them. They get angry because their partner won't change. They get annoyed because coworkers are too negative, their boss is too cold, society is too unfair. They live as if the entire world should adapt to their expectations, and when it doesn't, they suffer. Then they tell themselves, I'm learning to let go. No, they're just practicing controlled rage. Stoicism teaches one truth that's as simple as it is brutal. If you suffer because of things outside your control, the problem isn't the world, it's you. What others think, do, or how they react, none of that is within your power. You can offer advice, set an example, speak your truth, but if they still don't change, you must be rational enough not to lose your mind over it. Why do you want others to change? Because you believe that if they change, you'll be happier. That's dependency, an emotional leash wrapped in moral language. You won't say it out loud, but you think, if they understood me more, loved me more, respected me more, then I'd be okay. Meaning you've handed your inner peace over to them. That's anti-philosophy. That's anti-freedom. A true Stoic understands that no one was born to meet your expectations. Every person lives with their own standards, their own wounds, their own limits. You can love them, but you can't force them to live by your rulebook, and then get upset when they fall short. If you can't accept that, the problem is with you. You haven't yet developed the strength to love someone without needing to control them. No one owes you change. No one is obligated to grow on your timeline. No one has to be rational, moral, or logical in your eyes. If they're wrong, that's their lesson. If they choose the wrong path, they'll pay for it, in their own way. You don't need to play God to fix them. You just need to do your part right. The truth is, most people try to change others not out of love or care, but out of ego. They feel threatened when someone doesn't behave as they expect. They see themselves as right and want the world to validate that by changing someone else's behavior. That's control, not compassion. If you truly practice Stoicism, you won't waste energy trying to change people. You'll direct all of it toward changing yourself. You'll set a personal code and live by it, regardless of how others live. You'll stay silent when needed, walk away when necessary, and stay non-judgmental when it serves no purpose. Not because you're weak, but because you know most of what angers you doesn't belong to you. Stoicism doesn't train you to be a preacher. It trains you to be accountable. And someone who is truly accountable doesn't need anyone else to change in order to live rightly. You can keep blaming others, waiting for them to grow up, trying to force them to evolve so you can find peace. Or you can turn inward, rebuild your own response system, and choose to mature first, regardless of who follows. A truly strong person doesn't need the world to change with them, but still holds their ground inside that world. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this video helpful. It's the best way to support me in creating more valuable content. You say you live by principles, that you follow Stoicism, that you don't let the world sway you. But the moment someone talks behind your back, the second a negative comment hits you online, or your partner says something that stings, you spiral. You get anxious. You need to defend yourself. You need to fix your image. You can't stand the idea that someone out there might think wrongly of you. That's not philosophy. That's image maintenance. Reputation is a seductive illusion of power. You think when others respect you, trust you, praise you, that your life has value. But in reality, you're just dependent on external validation to define who you are. And that's slavery, a modern form of slavery people no longer recognize, because it's dressed up in virtue. Being a good person, being responsible, protecting your reputation. Sounds noble, but if your reputation is built on pleasing everyone, then you've sold your soul for something that looks good on the outside. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Fame is the longest-lasting thing in a graveyard. You'll die, and people might talk about you for a minute, then forget you ever existed. The praise you chase today won't survive 3 years, let alone 30. But the principles you abandon to get that praise? They'll haunt you for the rest of your life, in the form of a quiet, constant disgust you feel for yourself." A Stoic doesn't live for compliments about their strength. They live to be strong, whether anyone notices or not. They do the right thing in silence, accept being misunderstood, even attacked, because truth doesn't need to be advertised. They'd rather lose reputation than bend themselves to please the crowd. They'd rather be seen as cold, arrogant, even ruthless, than play the role of the nice guy for people who don't even know them. And you? What are you trying to prove? Do you work hard because it's right, or because you want to be seen as hardworking? Do you help others because it's the right thing, or because you want to be labeled a good person? Do you stay quiet under insult because you've trained calmness, or because you're afraid people will think you've lost control if you respond? You can fool yourself, but don't think you can fool philosophy. Philosophy isn't in the words you say. It's in the silent choices you make every day when no one's watching. And if those choices are just about preserving admiration, approval, and popularity, then you're selling yourself off piece by piece. If you want to live stoically, you have to accept the loss of reputation. Accept that people might hate you and you don't need to react. Accept being misunderstood and don't explain. Accept that people may think you're cold, arrogant, heartless, when in truth, you're simply staying loyal to your principles. And if you can't handle that, you're still weak. To live by Stoicism is to hold on to who you are, even when you lose everything others admire about you. Because in the end, if your integrity is intact, you haven't lost a damn thing. There's a certain type of person who thinks that to live stoically, they have to kill off all emotion. They think they need to become cold, detached, numb, shut down every internal reaction, look at life with a dead stare, and armor up like pain no longer affects them. They think Stoicism means becoming a robot. No feelings, no reactions, just some kind of elevated denial. But nothing could be further from the philosophy. Stoicism doesn't teach you to kill emotion. It teaches you to master it. And to master it, you've got to be willing to face it. To recognize when you're angry, when you're hurt, when you're afraid, and from there, choose how you respond. No denial, no pretending, no "I'm fine" mask while you're unraveling inside. Real control comes from real confrontation. If you keep acting like nothing's happening, you're not in control, you're just suppressing. And everything you suppress long enough will eventually explode. You can't call yourself stoic while denying sadness. You're not being rational when you ignore the rage simmering inside. You're not stronger because you feel nothing. You're just repressing. And repression isn't reason, it's fear dressed in logic. It's ego refusing to admit you're still human. And then, when those feelings inevitably erupt, not because you chose it, but because you held them down too long, you'll lose control. You're just a ticking bomb in disguise. Stoicism doesn't ask you to extinguish emotion. It calls you to wield it. Anger isn't your enemy. It's a signal that your boundaries have been crossed. Sadness isn't weakness. It's your system telling you you've lost something that mattered. Fear isn't failure. It's a warning that you're stepping out of your comfort zone. The real question is, how do you respond to those signals? Do they control you, or do they help you understand yourself better? Emotions are wild horses. Leave them loose, and they'll drag you off a cliff. Lock them in a cage, and they'll go insane and tear everything apart. But if you learn to take the reins, you can ride them through the storm and not fall. That's Stoicism. Not avoiding emotion, but riding it with reason. and you'll never ride it if you keep pretending it doesn't exist. I've seen the guys who act solid as a rock but fall apart the second a relationship cracks. The ones who say, "I don't care what people think," then secretly check every negative comment. The ones who play the rational card but crumble when there's nothing left to cling to. That's not stoicism. That's defense mode. A true stoic can cry, can bleed, can break. But they don't use those emotions to blame, to run, or to manipulate. They face them, acknowledge them, then keep walking. They don't deny them, but they don't get swept away either. That's real freedom. No dependence, no evasion, no impulsive reaction. If you think stoicism means no emotion, you've missed the point. You're turning a life philosophy into a mask. And the problem with masks is they always fall off, right when you need them most. And when that happens, you won't just lose face. You'll lose your compass, because you never learn to make peace with your real emotions. You don't need to be numb. You need to be solid. You don't need to erase every feeling. You need to remain in control, even when those feelings surge. And when you can do that, not by pretending, but by truly understanding what's happening inside, then, and only then, have you truly stepped onto the path of stoicism. The deepest reason most people can't truly live stoicism is because they've never faced real pain. Not a breakup, not work stress, not that lost feeling in a boring office job. I'm talking about pain that rips your direction, shatters your trust, and strips you of yourself. The kind of pain that crushes your pride, leaves you with no one to blame but yourself, and forces you to face the raw truth. You are no one. And if you don't get up, no one's coming to save you. Stoicism was born in that place. It didn't come from libraries, podcasts, or trendy online philosophy groups. It came from battlefields, hunger, slavery, and brutal isolation. The men who wrote it weren't trying to inspire. They wrote to stay sane. They wrote to remind themselves, if you don't hold on to reason, life will eat you alive. For them, reason wasn't a philosophy, it was survival. But you treat stoicism like a lifestyle brand, a soft trend to make yourself feel deeper than everyone else. You highlight a few lines from a book and think you've awakened. You quote Seneca in your selfie captions. But you've never been broken enough to know what's real and what's fake. Never been betrayed so deeply you lose all trust. Never had to work with empty hands while pretending nothing's wrong. Never lost someone you love in an instant, without time for a goodbye. Never been ripped from your safe little world and thrown naked into life's storm with just one question left. Why the hell are you still breathing? Until you felt that, philosophy is just wordplay. You don't know silence yet. You don't know what it's like to be speechless and still have to move. You don't know what it costs to stand up when no one's in your corner. You think being tough means not crying. You don't get that sometimes. The real strength is standing up after you cry. Stoicism isn't for those who sit in safety and talk about emotional control. It's not for people who've never been stripped of everything but still chose to live right. It's not for those who think understanding a philosophy is enough to master life. It's for the ones who've lost and kept going, who've bled and still worked, who were abandoned and stayed kind, misjudged and stayed quiet, crushed and never gave up their principles. If you've never tasted real pain, don't say you live stoically. You don't get it yet. You're still in the outer circle, where everything's clean, where you have the luxury of choosing whether to read or not, whether to practice or skip today. But when the real pain comes, you won't have a choice. You won't turn to philosophy to feel inspired. You'll need it like a drowning man needs air. You'll learn to shut up, endure, grit your teeth without whining, and keep doing what's right even when nobody's clapping. At that moment, you won't be reading stoicism. You'll be living it. Until then, you're still an apprentice. Well-read, well-spoken, but untouched by reality. And if you haven't lived it, don't claim the title. You haven't earned it. You've heard enough. You know enough. The problem isn't knowledge anymore. It's not about understanding or finding more motivation. The final question is simple and brutal. Do you dare to practice? Do you dare to stay silent when insulted? Keep walking when no one's cheering? Hold to your principles when the world misjudges you? collapse in solitude without begging for pity, do what's right again and again without emotion, without praise? Can you do the right thing, even when no one knows you did? If not, then everything you read, say, believe it's just performance. A role for your ego, your image, the crowd. But Stoicism isn't for actors. It's for the brave, for those who can endure pain, repetition, loneliness, and still move forward. You don't need more books, more podcasts. You need to start living what you already know. No excuses, no delays, no waiting for the right time. Stoicism doesn't ask how much you understand. It asks only one thing: will you act? And your answer, it won't be in your words. It'll be in how you live tomorrow. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.